What about the American Gladiators? Now, the story, if I remember correctly, somebody saw you or talked to you when the Gladiators were trying out here in Houston. They were doing tryouts. Somebody met you there, and then you just get a call a year later saying that we would like you to co-host the show.
I remember that we did a piece for the news, the sportscast. And Ken Hoffman, who's just a huge Gladiator fan, he was funny. He wrote a column about it and, made a deal about it. So then that went away. But I don't know if it was a couple months afterwards or a month afterwards, I get a cold call into the sports department. Someone put it through to my desk. Someone's looking for me. And the person on the line said, I'm so-and-so with the American Gladiators show in Los Angeles, and we're looking for Lisa. I said, oh, this is Lisa. Oh, are you calling because you want footage? You want something that we shot that day, I'm assuming. And he goes, well, no, we're looking for you. And I said, for me? And he said, we are looking for a female co-host for the job, and Samuel Goldwyn saw you interviewed on National Public Television. It was a spot that the National Public TV had done on Title IX, which was the legislation that gave women access to the same kinds of sports opportunities that men had. So I had been interviewed as an athlete, a former athlete, on this spot, and Samuel Goldwyn saw it. I was up for 15 seconds, but he was in Los Angeles and saw me interviewed for that and told his people to find me. They didn't even know that I'd done a piece on the Gladiators here in Houston. So it was totally random that they came to me because he had seen me, interviewed. He just knew that I was a female sportscaster in Houston, Texas, and there weren't many. And so he said, you know what, find this girl, bring her in for an interview.
You remember who all you crossed paths with?
Oh, it's funny. Yes. Well,
during that time.
Oliver, the movie maker.
Oh, Oliver Stone. Yeah.
He was a huge fan. He came. He would come to the taping. Pat O'Brien came to the set because the second year taping, the longtime sportscaster, the funny thing was he was a little arrogant when he was walking around because it was back in the day where not everybody, and then he ended up doing that show like Inside Hollywood or something. I just thought back about it, but but because he knew the producer of the show, who's a really good guy, and Pat O'Brien came. In fact, the producer of the Gladiators did that other show, Inside Edition or whatever it was, and Pat anchored that for that same producer later. But Alan Pinkett, we had a Notre Dame versus USC competition. So we had a bunch of the ex-guys, and Alan Pinkett, who was playing for the Oilers, came out. It was really, really fun to have him out there. One of the funny things was I was doing covering a Warren Moon had, a gala to raise funds when he was still playing for the Oilers. It was here in Houston, but I had been doing the taping for the Gladiators out there. And Marcus Allen they were at this Warren Moon thing, and I remember saying something to Mark, like I was going to do an interview, and introducing myself. I'm Lisa Malosky with KPRC. I know who you are. And I said, you know who I am? And he goes, I said, Gladiators? Because California jocks we had a huge following with the California crowd. So it was very funny. I mean, I guess the reach went far greater than I ever expected, but no, we'd tape 2 shows a day. It was very real. They were all the Gladiators. I just was watching that ninja show last night. I really had I've seen it once or twice, but it is exactly the same kind of stuff that the Gladiator arena had, except they were going against the Gladiators, but those kinds of crazy games and things that they were doing, tests of physical ability, that's kind of what they had set up in the Gladiator
sort of spawned
arena.
A lot of those types of shows.
Yes.
And one of the cool things, if I read this right, is that your dressing room was Mary Tyler Moore's old dressing room. Is that right?
It was. There's a plaque outside my dressing room that it was Mary Tyler Moore, and she was, of course, a hero of mine growing up. I mean, I loved Mary Tyler Moore. I loved the show. It was taped in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. She's a female reporter.
Yes.
She's trying to make it in the business.
Yes.
She's working against the guy-oriented feel and the whole thing.
I mean, it's just crazy how my life paralleled in some ways hers. I never, would have died to have met her, but I loved it. She threw her hat up in his downtown Minneapolis, and I loved everything about her in that show.
This was her dressing room for the Mary Tyler Moore show?
Yeah, for the Mary Tyler Moore show. Yeah, for years. And it was a great dressing room. It had it had a little kitchenette and had a bathroom, and I was like, wow, this is so cool to have your own dressing room. The funny thing is, Roseanne used the same dressing room because her show was taped on that, but they didn't tape it obviously at the same time. So I got that. I got that same dressing room. Yeah.
Or no, years later from Mary Tyler Moore, but at the same time you were doing that.
Different season. Yeah, different part of the year.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.